You wake up with a fever, your body aches, your throat burns, and within a few hours, you have options: a pharmacy, a doctor, a diagnosis, a pill that will, in all likelihood, fix you. Now take all of that away. No medicine, no hospitals, no germ theory, no understanding of what is even happening inside your body. Just pain, confusion, and a world that does not stop because you feel terrible. That was the reality for every human being who lived before the last few centuries. And the real question is not just what they did. The real question is how they survived at all. Because here is what most people do not realize. Ancient humans were not helpless. They were not stumbling blindly through illness, hoping for luck. They had systems, they had knowledge, they had strategies passed down through generations that in some cases actually worked. And some of those strategies are being rediscovered by modern science right now. Let that sink in. Your ancestors figured out things about the human body that took Western medicine thousands of years to catch up to. Start at the beginning. Start with a body that gets sick somewhere on the African savanna, roughly 70,000 years ago. You are part of a small band of hunter-gatherers, maybe 30, maybe 50 people. Everyone knows each other. Everyone depends on each other. And now you cannot walk. You cannot hunt. You cannot carry anything. What happens? The first thing that happens is rest. Not because anyone told you to rest, because your body forces you to. Anthropologist Daniel Lieberman at Harvard has studied the evolutionary biology of illness extensively. And one of his key findings is that the symptoms of sickness, the fatigue, the fever, the loss of appetite, are not the illness itself. They are the immune system's strategy. Your body is deliberately making you miserable so that you will stop moving and redirect every calorie toward fighting whatever has invaded you. The fever is not a malfunction. The fever is a weapon. Ancient humans did not know this mechanically, but they knew it behaviorally. You rest when you are sick. You stay close to the fire. You drink water. You let others bring you food. These were not accidental behaviors. They were intuitive responses to what the body was demanding, and they mapped almost perfectly onto what modern immunology tells us is correct. But rest alone does not explain survival, because ancient humans faced things that rest cannot fix. Infected wounds, parasites, respiratory illness, broken bones that became septic. The list of ways a body could fail without modern intervention is long and brutal. So what did they actually do? Plants. The answer, overwhelmingly, is plants. Ethnobotanist Paul Allen Cox spent decades studying indigenous healing traditions across the Pacific and found that many traditional plant remedies contain compounds that are genuinely pharmacologically active. This was not superstition dressed up as medicine. These were empirically discovered treatments identified through generations of trial, observation, and accumulated knowledge, passed from healer to healer in an unbroken chain that stretches back further than writing itself. Think about what that means. Every culture on Earth, independently, developed a system of plant-based medicine. The specifics varied, but the structure was the same. Someone in the group knew which plants helped and which plants killed. Someone remembered what worked last time. Someone was trusted to make decisions when the body failed. That person was not always called a shaman or a healer in the romantic sense. Sometimes they were simply the oldest woman in the group, the one who had seen the most illness, the one who had watched what helped and what did not. Her knowledge was the pharmacopoeia. Her memory was the medical record. Willow bark was one of the most widespread of these remedies. Cultures across Europe, Asia, and the Americas independently discovered that chewing willow bark relieved pain and reduced fever. It was not magic. Willow bark contains salicin, which the body converts into salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Your ancestors had aspirin. They just did not know what to call the molecule. Wounds were a different problem, a different kind of terror. In a world without antibiotics, a cut could kill you. Not quickly, but absolutely. An infected wound that cannot be treated will follow a predictable and horrifying path. And ancient humans knew this. They could see it happening, so they developed strategies that were, again, more sophisticated than we tend to assume. Honey was one of the most widely used wound treatments in the ancient world, and this was not myth. Honey has genuine antimicrobial properties. Its low water content, high sugar concentration, and production of hydrogen peroxide create an environment where bacteria cannot survive. Ancient Egyptians documented its use on wounds in the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical texts ever found, but long before writing, people were packing wounds with honey because they had watched it work. Clay. Certain types of clay, particularly those containing minerals like elite or smectate, have been used on wounds and infections across cultures on every continent. Modern microbiologist Linda Williams at Arizona State University has studied ancient healing clays and found that some of them are genuinely effective against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The ancient healers did not know why, but they knew that it helped. Maggots. This one is harder to stomach, but controlled maggot therapy, placing specific fly larvae on infected wounds to eat only dead tissue, was practiced in ancient cultures and is still used in modern medicine today for wounds that do not respond to antibiotics. The Romans observed that soldiers whose wounds became infested with certain maggots often survived when others did not. Your ancestors noticed the same thing. They were watching, always watching. That is the part of ancient medicine that gets lost in the romanticized or dismissive versions of history. These were not passive people waiting for God to save them. They were empiricists. They had no formal scientific method, but they had something that functions almost identically: observation, repetition, and collective memory. Now consider what happened when none of it worked, because sometimes nothing worked. A child dies of fever despite everything. A hunter dies of an infected bite no plant could reach. And this is where ancient medicine crossed from the physical into something else entirely. Archaeologist David Lewis Williams at the University of the Witwatersrand has studied cave paintings and ancient burial practices across multiple continents and argues that the earliest evidence of spiritual ritual is almost always tied to illness and death. When the body could not be saved, something else had to be done. For the mind, for the group, for the people left watching. Ritual was not a replacement for medicine. It was medicine of a different kind. When you watch someone you love suffer and you cannot fix it, the helplessness itself becomes a wound. Ancient communities understood this in practice even without the language for it. They gathered around the sick. They sang. They performed actions that created the feeling of doing something. Modern psychology has a name for this. It is called perceived control. And research consistently shows that even the illusion of agency reduces psychological stress, which in turn supports immune function. The ritual was real medicine for the people performing it, even when it could not save the person it was performed for. And sometimes it did save them. Not because of magic, because stress is an immune suppressor and community is a stress reducer. A sick person surrounded by people who are actively, visibly, ritually committed to their survival is a sick person under less psychological stress, which is a sick person whose immune system is functioning better. Your ancestors did not know the mechanism, but they lived the outcome. Here is the part that changes how you see your own medicine cabinet. Roughly 25% of modern pharmaceutical drugs are derived directly from plants. Morphine from poppies, quinine from cinchona bark, Taxol, one of the most effective cancer drugs ever developed, from the Pacific yew tree. Digoxin, used to treat heart failure, from foxglove. These were not discovered by scientists working in isolation. Many of them were discovered because scientists finally listened to what indigenous healers had been saying for generations. The knowledge was always there. It was waiting to be translated. And there is something humbling about that. You live in an age of technology so advanced that your ancient ancestors would have no framework for understanding it. But the body you are living in is the same body they had. The immune system defending you right now is the same system that kept your line alive through 200,000 years of illness, without a single hospital, without a single antibiotic, without a single understanding of what a virus even was. They survived, imperfectly, with loss, with grief, with strategies that were sometimes brilliant and sometimes wrong, but they survived enough. They survived enough that you exist. Tonight, if you feel a fever coming on, you will probably take something that works, something that a pharmaceutical company manufactured in a sterile facility using knowledge accumulated over centuries. But the first version of that knowledge, the first time a human being noticed that a certain bark made the burning stop, that was one of your ancestors, sitting by a fire, watching, trying, remembering, and passing it on.